I manage fighters as well. I've got a manager's license. Where there's money involved, we know the nature of the sport. People whisper in their ears, not getting the right training, not getting the right sparring. It could be anything. But with me, I like to protect the fighters. I'll give them, I always say, they give me 100%, I'll give them 110%.
How important do you think is studying fighters leading up to the fight?
In any sport now, there's like tactics and there's game plans, and it's the same with boxing. Times do move forward. Now going back to what Ronnie said, he said, hold on, you could study a fighter for weeks and weeks and weeks. You could be fighting an orthodox fighter. But what happens if the bell goes and he comes out southpaw, or he does something different? You get S&C coaches who come in and then they're whispering in their ear saying they should be doing this and doing that. So you can lose control of it, definitely.
So social media, that's a good thing to talk about. How good do you think it is for your fighters now to have their own platform? Obviously, compared to maybe 20 years ago when you started coaching, it would be a lot different, right? In terms of like promoting yourself and things. If you wasn't with a big promoter back then, you would never be able to get famous. But people can film their own things on Instagram and sort of get their own followers and attention now.
Yeah, like yourself, I think it's a fantastic platform to have. Obviously, if you're not lucky enough to be with a big promoter and have that big TV platform, obviously, fighters have got to sell tickets. And really, the old school way used to be going to the pub and meeting your mates and trying to sell tickets that way. But with social media now, it's a great platform to be able to sell tickets and promote yourself if you ain't got a big promoter behind you. So yeah, like I say, I think it's the way it works now is a massive advantage for anyone really that wants to get into, professional boxing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it could be maybe a disadvantage as well, though, for people that are focusing too much on their image and not just going to the gym every day, putting the hours of work in?
100%. And I think also people are quick to have an opinion on social media as well, for good and for bad. So obviously, it can be a bad thing as well, obviously, for fighters if they get bad comments and stuff and then they react and so on like that. But overall, it's definitely a positive to have social media about this day and age.
Yeah, definitely. With the growth of the sport, when did you actually start coaching? Has it been about 20 years, am I thinking?
About 23 years now. Obviously got into coaching quite young. Basically, I was like 27, 28 when I first got into coaching. And while we're on that subject, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. But obviously started off having an amateur club for a couple of seasons. And back then it was either amateurs or pros. Now this day and age you can have an amateur a license and a professional boxer's trainer's license. Back then it was like one or the other. So yeah, it's quite an interesting story really, because I basically boxed myself when I was about 18. Had 7 amateur fights myself, just a little bit of experience. And when I first moved to Southampton when I was 15, I started hanging around with a few lads on a bit of a rough old estate in Southampton, and they obviously was in and out of jail, if we want to say that. Obviously I took the other path, I was boxing a little bit, and one day they contacted me and said, we want to open up a little boxing club on the estate, and you're the only person we know that's done any boxing. Would you come down and do a bit of coaching for the kids? And here I am now.
Amazing. What made them want to open the boxing club at the time? What was their thought behind it all?
Obviously, with their background of obviously being in and out of prison a little bit, they could see the kids on the estate must be going in the same way, and they most probably wanted to try and, do something and try and keep them kids out of jail where they were where they was in and out of.
What estate was that in Southampton?
Northam Estate in St Mary's.
Oh, okay.
So most of the kids from that area, which is obviously, not still to this day, still not the greatest of areas. And obviously my gym now is located right bang in the middle of both estates. And so basically we started off in a school. They got a little hall in the school and said to me, can you come over and do some coaching? And I did that. We even had a homemade ring. Someone built us a ring. And that's where it all started.
Amazing. And who did you learn off when you were boxing yourself? Did you have a coach? Was it in Southampton you were born and raised?
I was actually born in Southampton. Then we moved away. We've done a bit of a cycle really. Moved to Basingstoke when I was young. Then we went to London, and then come back to Basingstoke, and then ended up back up in Southampton. So I was actually born in Southampton. Done a full circle really. Basingstoke, London, Basingstoke, back to Southampton.
What brought you back? Was it just parents' work and things?
Yeah, just family. Obviously, my mum's side of the family were obviously London-based. My eldest brother, he was born in Hammersmith, London. And just family. Like my mum's side of the family moved away. They were born in London, then moved to Southampton. So we sort of like just followed track.
Nice. And what was life like growing up for you guys?
Tough. Obviously, there's 5 of us. 1 sister, 4 brothers. It was like sharing bedrooms and fighting and arguing over things. But yeah, it was like I said, we're all close still now. But yeah, it was a good experience in life, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like always these type of stories is where great people come out of usually, coming from, well, like you said, even the boxing area that you end up setting up in Shirley. I actually work with ex-offenders.
Right.
So my day job is a lot in Southampton, a lot of people around there. And the benefits of boxing, even for adults, not just kids, as you know, is paramount. It keeps you off the streets, keeps you out of the pubs, keeps you training, keeps you focused on your mental health. If you ask anyone that's not drinking alcohol and focusing on their fitness, they're going to be pretty happy, releasing all of the good happy drugs in their brain just for exercise, dopamine and everything else.
Yeah, like I say, I think it's a great sport for that. Like I say, I just think for mental health, obviously it's quite big in boxing in a minute, innit?
My name is Dennis McCann, professional boxer for Frank Moore and MTK Global. This is Fortress Boxing. A lot more protection, it's a no-brainer around your thumbs, around your knuckles, around your wrist. That's exactly where I have the problems at. They're very compact, so I feel like I'm punching hard with them on as well. And I feel like when you got sparring 14, 16 ounce gloves, the smaller wraps can't really. They're too small for the gloves. That makes sense. So these are a bit bigger, and they're getting the gloves a bit more. They're making them more compact.
Tyson Fury, I suppose, Ricky Hatton. They talk about mental health at the moment. So, like I say, I think boxing's a great sport for that. To keep these young kids on the straight and narrow, and release some good endorphins in anyone who wants to train really through boxing. But obviously mental health can become a problem as well, obviously later on with boxing.
Yeah. Do you think it's solely from head trauma, or do you think it's from that and other things during a boxing career?
No, I don't think. I think let's talking about head trauma. Obviously, I would like to say that I think the British Boxing Board of Control, the best in the world for the health and safety side of boxing, and the medical requirements is first class, very strict, which I respect that. But I think the mental health most probably comes from more. If you think about fighters who have massive highs and lows, and then at the end of their career they retire, and then they haven't got them no more. I think, and I do honestly feel like boxing is, it's a hard sport in the fact that, sometimes there's a lot of money involved, and people obviously want to, you're a champion, and people are happy to, be your mate or want to associate with you as soon as you lose. It's that old saying, isn't it? When you're winning and you're champions, the change room's full up. When you're losing, there's no one around you. They've all gone. So I think I think the mental side of that, fighters going through that, and even as a trainer, you go through that sometimes. Just come off the latest one with Ryan, see that WBC International, and everyone's buzzing and it's good. But if it was a defeat, everyone would be gone. Have
you witnessed it firsthand?
Yeah.
How everyone just disappears?
To be fair, I don't want to sound egotistic, but I haven't been on many defeats yet at the moment.
Okay.
In my career, but there has been a couple of times where I've had a couple of defeats, and not at the top level, but a good level. And there is people like they think they can go out and do their own thing when you have obviously coaches that help you, and obviously you get a loss and they automatically think, oh, you know, we can go out and do our own thing now. We're not in a winning formula no more.
Yeah. How do you find sometimes when you are coaching someone and they're not listening to what you're saying and they maybe not sticking to the game plan? Do you have that often, or have you got quite a good group of pros in the gym that all do listen? And
No, that's a good question, because I always believe that, you know, the sign of a good fighter sometimes is someone that you can give instructions to and they can go out and follow them. It don't necessarily say that they don't want to follow them. Some fighters can't do that. They're not good enough. You know, they haven't got the capability to do that. So that you know when you work with a good fighter, when you give him some instructions and he can go out and carry them. Obviously, you know, I've given out instructions before to fighters in the corner and they've gone out there and done something completely different. And sometimes I question, is it because they don't want to listen and there's no respect there, or is it they can't do it? And I think there's a difference there. Some fighters can do it. Some fighters will listen and respect it, but they can't go out and follow instructions. They're not, they're not good enough.
yeah, and it is hard. Obviously, if you are, for example, in York Hall in front of thousands of people, it's being streamed on the TV, you've got all the adrenaline. I'm sure as a fighter that is in that situation, sometimes it might be too much for you to even, you know, absorb the information and adjust your game plan. I think, like you said, you know, some fighters can do that and some just might not be able to do it. It's even in the amateurs, it could be hard. If you go back to your corner tired and your coach is saying, you know, why are you loading up? Why can't you feint first? If you're too tired and you can't do such a simple thing like that, it's just learning steps. But as a pro, you should be definitely taking those on board. And
like you know, sometimes I think some trainers can overcomplicate it and give too many instructions. I'm one of them trainers, just like to keep it simple and basic. Because if you overload a fight with too much information, like I just say, yes, you might get the odd fighter who's good enough to go out and carry that and do that. But some fighters, they can't even follow basic instructions sometimes.
What does your corner work look like in a round for you personally? Is it you get them back, get their breath down, give them like a positive, give them what they need to change, and then like give them just one little thing to tweak and that's it? Or
yeah, you're not far wrong there. I like to have the fighter to have a good deep breath, just try to get as much relaxed and nice as possible, and then just give them some basic instructions really on how the fight's going or what they need to do. You know, I've been in the corners before, and you know, you've got a coach there trying to tell the fighter to, you know, double jab, backhand, roll, slip, step to the side.
You can see it sometimes, can't you?
Yeah.
As well,
and it's like, you know, you wouldn't even give Floyd Mayweather them instructions, would you? But it's just keep it nice and basic and simple. And I suppose I learned that from Ronnie Davis, obviously working in the corner with him, where I started my professional career. So I've just picked up from that really, and I think it's the right way to go.
So you said off air just before we started that you've been blessed to be around some of the best coaches in the world and you've learnt things off them. Could we talk about some of the people you've met and what you've learnt from each person?
Problem. Yeah. So obviously I started with Ronnie Davis. I think Ronnie was in about, must have been 20 world title fights. Obviously, well known for Chris Eubank Senior, and you know, I was lucky enough to, you know, he took me under his wing. He took a liking to me, and the fight we had at the time was Emery Castle. That was the first pro that I was involved with. And, you know, I only spoke to Ronnie last week, just before the Chris Eubank and Liam Smith fight. And, you know, we phoned each other from time to time. And I know if I ever need any advice, he's there. You know, and I owe, you know, a lot to Ronnie, really. Because I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now if it wasn't for Ronnie. So yeah, first and foremost, I owe him a lot really. And then along my way, obviously international coaches. I was lucky enough to spend some time with Freddie Roach. You know, we all know about Freddie Roach, you know, and all the fighters that he's coached. And I suppose at one point he was most probably, you know, the best or the most famous coach in the world.
Definitely during the Pacquiao era.
Definitely,
he was the biggest name by far.
And he told me some great stories. And he said, he's talking about Manny Pacquiao. He goes, I didn't make Manny Pacquiao made me. So I think that was his first fighter that he really, really connected with. And then from then, obviously, once you got one real successful fighter, everyone wants to follow suit.
Why do you think that is, in terms of when one coach has a world champion, they all start coming? You've seen it with like Shane McGuigan, for example. Do you think it's just because of the confidence in the gym of being around the world level maybe boosts up the other fighters, or why do you think that is?
I think what you just said, really. I think Chris Eubank Sr. said to me once, like, and obviously it's from a fighter's point of view, and he always said to me, he believes that 90% of boxing is mental. And I think sometimes with the majority of a lot of fighters, they feel like, I think they've got to mentally feel in a good place, obviously, to have that confidence to go into a fight. And so I think that's where it stems from. And they think, like, if they go with a good coach or top coach, it gives them that bit of confidence. But that ain't always the case with every fighter. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of fighters, I think that is the case. That's why they tend to go with these coaches that are already, obviously, we've just seen it just recently, haven't we, with Bomac, with Chris Eubank going to him after for the rematch for Liam Smith.
I thought he looked so much better in the second fight.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. I think he looked so much better. But I thought also from Liam Smith's point of view, I think, from the first, he has obviously had problems in that second fight, which is obviously with weight by the looks of it, from what he's saying, and a few injuries. But not taking nothing away from Chris Eubank Jr. He did look good in that fight, like you say. But going there, and Buddy McGuire's come off to see the Terence Crawford win over Errol Spence. I think fighters sometimes like that. I think more so, especially late on in their career, fighters like to do that. But obviously, if you have a fighter who's been with a trainer from day one, and it's a winning formula, why, do you know what I mean? Why fix what ain't broken?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. I know obviously you can learn a few tricks off different coaches, but you can't teach a relationship overnight. You can't give that. And if you've cornered a fighter and been with him for years, that you have done, you have got a way better advantage working with them than if they went to a flashy American coach that's really good, just because you know them on a personal level. That relationship takes years to build, the trust. So I agree with you there completely.
Yeah, you're spot on there, Ash, because I've been having this conversation with one of my assistant coaches in the gym in the last couple of weeks about, obviously, he's learning, he's coming through. I've took him under my wing, and we was having this conversation about, what makes a good coach, but like you just said, I think as well, one of the most important things is the connection between the fighter and the trainer. Ronnie Davis always said to me, don't get too emotionally attached, because fighters come and go. But when you're spending, 5, 6, 7 days a week with fighters, I spend more time with my fighters than I do with my own 2 kids. It's hard not to. And I think sometimes you just get that connection. So I think that is massively important. Like, if you've got that connection, I think that's a big advantage, because you don't get that a lot, like you say, with fighter and coach. Sometimes it's just like a working relationship. It ain't like an emotional relationship. And going back to, obviously, coaches that I've come across my path before. Emmanuel Stewart, I was lucky enough to meet him, and to me, I was a massive Freddie Roach fan at the time, but Emmanuel Stewart to me is most probably one of the best teachers of all time for me. And he said to me, I asked him all, what's the secret then? And like you said, he said to me, knowing your fighter, knowing what makes them tick, knowing how to peak them, and like I say, if you've got that emotional connection, you will get the best out of them.
100%. I think as well, that's why Bud Crawford is the best pound for pound, because of he's had Bomac since the start. When you do look at his career, like they've grown together. It's a journey they've been on as a team. Even though boxing's a lonely sport, you need a team. And my friend had his pro debut recently, and he's not really got a coach whatsoever. It was his MMA debut, but he hasn't got a relationship with a coach that he needs, and he's looking for that, and it's so difficult just to find that. And from a fighter's perspective, if you don't trust your coach or believe in him, or you're just paying for lessons and it's just business, how are you ever going to be part of a team that has their best interests at heart? And as you know, boxing's a cutthroat sport. If you have one loss at the world stage, that could be it for you. You could be dropped in a heartbeat, all the sponsors, everything. But if you've got a coach that's been there from the start, that's going to be there with you when you lose, I think that's so much more impactful. And it's so much better for a fighter to know they're there for them as a person. Because as you know, life after boxing, you could be retired by 35 years old and you're going to have hopefully another 60 healthy, happy years.
Yeah, like what you just said there, like you could, you're spot on, because that's the way I feel. Like in boxing, there's obviously, I manage fighters as well. I've got a manager's license, and I know that's my sort of like protection, to protect them, as in such. But where there's money involved, we know the nature of the sport. We know what it's like you said, people whisper in their ears, and people that they think that the grass is green on the other side or something, or they're being hard done by, or they're, not getting the not getting the right training, not getting, the right sparring. It could be anything. And they only need someone to whisper in their ear and they're off. So, but with me, I like to, protect the fighters. I'll give them, I always say, they give me 100%, I'll give them 110%. That's all I'm asking for from that side. I'm not money driven, which obviously, I've got dreams and goals that I want to fulfil for myself in the sport, and that's obviously to train a world champion. Like any fighter that comes in to the gym and starts boxing and they want to take it serious and they fall in love with it, then that should be their dream as well, to be a world champion, the highest they can reach in the sport. So, like I say, from my point of view, I've still got them goals and them dreams of doing that. But it's not money. But some people treat boxing as pure business, and the money's their number one priority. So they will do what they need to do to make sure that they're financially gaining out of it. Where me, it's more I put them first before myself. So that's who I am, and that's what I am as a coach.
That's great to hear, and it's it will help you sleep at night. That's for sure. There's a lot of crooks out there which don't have people's best interests at heart. So it's nice to know that everyone in your gym, that they have got that. Because in England we're lucky, but in America and other places it looks a lot worse. It's a lot more cutthroat out there, a lot more come and go. And again, I think, you've hit the nail on the head. Just your relationship with everyone, it brings the best out of them as well. I'm sure they're growing as a fighter a lot quicker just because you've got that bond. And that bond, it's like anything with me. If I work with ex-offenders, if I'm trying to have the best come out of them, I need to be on the same level as them, and I need to make sure that we bounce off each other. They trust me, they're going to turn up, that I'm going to turn up. And it's relationships are probably one of the biggest things that are overlooked in the sport.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, I think that's the key anyway. And all the fighters that I've worked with obviously know that that's me. But then some fighters take that as being too weak. And they most probably want someone with a bit more of a stronger character, who's going to, I don't know how to describe this, but maybe to have like an argument with the promoter or so on. But they sometimes think like kindness or whatever is a weakness. But if you get the right connection with the fighter, it definitely works, and in the long run, it will be good.
Yeah. Do you find it hard where you've got so much talent in your gym? Do you find it hard that sometimes they want to be already at that spot and they're like, oh, get me this fight, I want to do this, I want to do that, and you're trying to sort of manage the expectations of this is the journey, this is how long it's going to be, this is how we should do it. Like your mindset could be maybe a lot more different to someone that's young and hungry, and they clearly win lots of titles, but maybe once you get to that stage, you know full well there's no going back.
Yeah, like say what you just said there. Ronnie Davis said that to me. You know, I asked him for a bit of advice a few years ago about a championship fight, and he said, "Listen, son," he said, "the only problem is once you get there at that level, there's no turning back." Which you just said, Ash. So that's true, but I think sometimes fighters want to get there too quick as well, and then like you say, once they're there, there is no coming back from that level then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's sort of a sink or swim. You've got to push on, or you're back to the average level.
Yeah.
And they say that, and that's part of managing a fighter right, and the right fighters at the right time. You know, all my fighters at the moment, the British-based fighters, are obviously with Frank Warren, Queensbury. You know, I've got a great relationship with Frank Warren and Queensbury, so I'm a believer. Like I said, if it ain't broken, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So, so it's all good at this stage.
Yeah. Have you seen the other side of it, where you've had really good amateurs come through, and maybe they've been kept too long at the journeyman stage? Not your stage, but anywhere, where sometimes a really good fighter is held back for so long that it's then detrimental to their career when they start stepping up.
Yeah, I haven't had any amateurs like that myself that have come through me, that have turned over with me, but I have seen it. You know, like I say, in my career, I've spent time, you know, all the top trainers in this country. I've spent weeks there, or with world champions. So I've seen a lot of what goes on in the other gyms, and I've seen like top amateurs spar some of the pros, like the champions at the time, and very good amateurs. I mean, we could talk about someone, you know, who's England captain, Olympian, and I see him spar. This was up at Joe Gallagher's gym, and I see him spar John Murray at the time, who was British and European champion, and great standout amateur, but he turned pro after that. He was just quite old and quite late because he stayed in the system much way too long, but then didn't quite make, you know what I mean, the pro that he should have done.
Yeah, it's a shame, especially when you're not being paid for it in the amateurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I say, I think finding the right time to turn over
Mm-hmm.
is a very big advantage if you can find the right time for them to turn over.
Yeah.
But I suppose because of the you know, the pandemic we had with COVID, I think a lot of amateurs now are turning over earlier than what they would normally turn over.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I had one working with me just recently. He's been training with me since 10 years of age. Very good amateur, 2 times European gold medalist.
What's his name?
Royston Barney Smith.
Ah, yeah.
So obviously he'd been working with me since 10. They said, like in COVID, oh, you know, once we get the COVID out of the way, you know, we want to turn over now. We're not going to stay in the amateurs too long. Took him to Frank Warren. You know, Frank signed him, and then he decided to go with Ben Davison. You know, and he's started off his career now with Queensbury, and he's had some great exposure. Frank's done and promised what he said he would do, because I was present at the meetings, and like I say, he's had a great platform really with Queensbury.
He was on the Tyson Fury undercard, wasn't he, as well? So you know, he had a lot
he was
of
on
people
both
there.
of them.
Yeah.
So you know, like I say, yeah, he's had some. For someone like that to turn over that age, I think it is, you know, a big advantage for him.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they, which I'm sure Frank will. Yeah, there's no one better out there than Frank Warren for me, from taking a youngster from the start of his career to world level. So you know, for someone like Royston, I think it's a great advantage that he's turned over young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a bit like Ryan Garner, obviously turned over when he was 18. So
yeah, I think Frank's got the most amount of prospects in the country by far. The amount of, but I think the biggest issue with Frank that I see as a boxing fan is there's not many for the main event for the big cards. When you've got Eddie Hearn that's got like an Anthony Joshua, and then like back when I saw Lomachenko against Luke Campbell, the undercard was stacked. There was Joe Cordina on there and all these others coming up and coming through. I felt like with Frank, he's got all these amazing fighters. I prefer the undercard usually to the main event. So I feel like that was sort of an issue as a boxing fan with him. But like watching, for example, you got the Joyce Zhang rematch. The undercard has got so many good fighters on that if people are only tuning in for the main event and they get bored by two heavyweights, if there's not maybe a knockout, if maybe it go distance or something, then they're going to be disappointed. But yeah, I think you're right in terms of he has by far the best stable of up and coming guys. There's going to be a lot of world champions coming in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, just going back to what you said, it's a good point really, because I think with boxing fans, they're very fickle, especially with pay-per-view now. As soon as a fight goes on pay-per-view, ranting and raving, this ain't good enough for pay-per-view. But I think if the full card is good, and then no one will moan about the pay-per-view. It's then like we say, when you get like a main event pay-per-view, it's just the one fight, but the undercard is poor. That's when people moan. They don't want to pay their, the money for the pay-per-view.
Well, like Prince Nassim Hamid's son, obviously it was a big debut and stuff, but to have him as a co-main event, I think was a big letdown. It was the guy came to lose, as you would do. He come in the corner, got stopped. It was all a little bit weird, but like that was right before everyone was hyped to see a heavyweight world champion take on a big prospect in Dubois. So, I just think sometimes it's never easy. And from Frank's perspective as well, how hard is it to manage all these people and to get it perfect and to get the money right? And it's an impossible job. You're never going to please everyone.
No, and I think that's a side. This day and age, people, like you say, you can't please everyone. Everyone's got an opinion and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but like they've got an hard job. But just recently, obviously, Ryan Garner's last fight, that was a great little for Friday night.
It was free, wasn't it, on Channel 5? No, TNT, sorry.
TNT Sport, TNT Sport. But it was a great cut. Obviously, you had Dennis McCann headlining. I think there's 4 title fights on there.
I think Ryan stole the show, for sure.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good positive feedback from that, saying that hopefully he's just starting to fulfil his potential and show everyone, what he can do. Because early on in his career, obviously, I'm not going to... everyone was speaking highly of him. He shared the ring with all the world champions, and I think you got him on next anyway, so I'm sure there'd be he can tell you quite a bit about himself and his early career, and it's nice for me to see that he's actually, like you just said, if that's come from you and said that he stole the show, then I'm more than happy with that. And a lot of people have said that. Yeah,
definitely. Well, even let's talk about Mark Chamberlain. Obviously, he's probably the main guy in your gym, people would say. You've been with him from how long now? You've worked with him for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I was 5 years. Obviously, his pro debut. Yeah, Mark's obviously 14-0 now, IBF European champion.
How many first round knockouts has he had?
I think it's 7 or 9. 7 or 9. Yeah, you've caught me there. I think it is 7 or 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
7, I think it is. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, talking about promotions and promoters. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about him and Sam Noakes, obviously for a few years now. But I think they just keep building that up to maybe make that into an headliner one day. And I think it'd be a fantastic fight. And, Sam's a great guy. But obviously it's business at the end, isn't it? And if it happens, then as long as they both get well paid and
exactly,
it'd be a great fight, then they'll both come out winners.
Yeah, well, I think it is too early. Definitely get some big titles on the line, for sure. Like if they were to do it when everyone first spoke about it years ago, then, like you said, you wouldn't have been paid properly. Someone would have been given their first loss, if not a draw, and it would have been detrimental. So again, that was good managing by Frank as they both sort of build up. I think Midge has he got the Commonwealth as well now?
Yeah, British. No, sorry, Commonwealth. Yeah.
So between them both, that is brewing to be a very big domestic clash.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe in the next year or two.
Yeah, I don't think it's too far away, to be honest with you now. I don't think it's a million miles away now. But like I say, as long as they both just keep winning and keep building that interest, because it's funny because the casual fans, they do. I do bump into a few, and that's the first question they ask. So when's Mark going to fight Sam Noakes?
It's the same for Sam. He gets asked at the time.
Yeah. So it's obviously definitely interest out there. And like I say, when it does happen, I hope it happens because I think it'd be good for boxing. And I think it's like I say, going back to Frank Warren being the best promoter out there. If you have a look at Dubois and Joyce, that's very similar. I think did they fight for the British and Commonwealth at the time? Was it? I think
I can't remember. I can't actually remember what it was for.
But like you say, the loser of that obviously was Daniel Dubois, and now look what Frank's done with Daniel Dubois. So fighters are funny, and they obviously want to protect that O, or trainers or managers. But like you say, when Mark fights Sam Noakes, I'm sure it's no problem for the loser because Frank will bring him back. So
definitely, and by that point they're going to be a fight away from the world stage anyway. You've got all of America to conquer yet. It's such a stacked weight division.
That lightweight division, that's tough.
Yeah,
at world level, isn't it? Yeah, so.
But look, it's good though, because like even for example Ryan Garcia, I wouldn't even put him in the top 10. No. But he's such a big name. If Mark was to even get like a Ryan Garcia fight or something else, the list of names that you could have as pay-per-view events or whatever it may be is endless. Whereas some divisions, like if you look at Sonny Edwards, great fighter, but besides Bam, there's not really much going on for him.
No.
So. I think it's a blessing and a curse because you're going to be tested. But if you're a fighter and you don't want to be tested at the world level, then maybe it's not the sport for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth there. Like you say, anyone in boxing or any fighter in boxing surely, wants to test themselves to the best of their capability. And like, I've had fighters before who say to me, I just want to be in a fight where I'm cut, I'm bruised. I'm like, you're crazy, but it is a combat sport, isn't it? Is that got that label of like being a warrior and and so on. So yeah, you're spot on there, as if to say, you've got to test yourself.
Yeah.
And even from my point of view as a coach, I want to test myself against other coaches as well at the top level. If I didn't want to do that then, or wanted to shy away from that, then obviously I'm in the wrong sport, surely.
Yeah.
So same for fighters, yeah.
Definitely. How important do you think is studying fighters leading up to the fight? Obviously, everyone's got different styles. Is that a big part of your game plan? Do you sit with the fighter and maybe look up who they're going to be going against when it gets to the bigger level?
You're asking some good questions today, I must admit, because I recall back to going back to Ronnie again, obviously, where I learnt my trade with Ronnie. He said to me, like with Eubank, he'd never watched the opponent, or he'd never sit down with them and go through like a game plan. I think. Sorry, I'll just move forward a little bit. But this day and age, I think more coaches do that now. I think it's it's like any sport. You look at football, the tactics. Any sport now, there's like tactics and there's game plans and there's formations and it's the same with boxing. Times do move forward. But now going back to what Ronnie said, he said, hold on, you could study a fighter for weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah, you could be fighting an orthodox fighter. Well, what happens if the bell goes and he comes out southpaw, or he does something different? So it is hard to I think you've got to find the right the right balance. But Freddie Roach said to me, going back to that, when I was having a good chat with him, when I was with him, he said to me, it was one of the sort of like questions I asked him as well. And he said that he looks for habits in fighters.
Mm.
So if they got bad habits, then obviously pick up on that and work on that with your fighter. He said, 'cause that's more likely what they're going to do rather than, yeah.
That's a great bit of advice, yeah, because you can see that usually with fighters and their styles, and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because going into, if we talk about Eubank Jr. with the rematch, in his first fight with Smith, and even in his training, he has his lead hand low and other things, and it's just how he is. It's how he was with Roy Jones, and for me, just as a boxing fan, thinking you shouldn't be doing that, especially, but in the rematch, Bomac didn't really give him that many instructions, but he had his hands up. He had great range control, and he did the things, the basic adjustments of the bad habits that you may have thought he had in the first fight that got him caught.
Yeah, no, like I say, that you're totally right. But you know, Ronnie, like I say, Ronnie kept it simple and basic. So don't get me wrong. Obviously, styles make fights, yeah. And you know, just obviously. We just go back to Ryan's last fight, 'cause that's the one that's fresh on my mind. Obviously, it's the last fight that obviously his opponent was obviously a little bit taller. Thought was going to box a little bit longer. Even though it's one of Ryan's strengths anyway. Ryan's a good pressure fighter, and just told him to just keep your hands up, which is a basic information. And the rest will come from Ryan. He knows what he's got to do. You know, get close to him, and then that's where you'll have success. And that's what he done. So basically, which, you know, two things that he done, which I was really, really pleased with, was his inside work when, you know, his opponent wanted to hold him and try and have a breather or just get his composure back. Ryan was still beating him up then, which, you know, was really pleasing. And he kept his hands up. He kept his hands up nice and tight, especially his lead hand. He keeps his backhand up nice anyway. Just keep his hands up tight, move his head a little bit. And
did you expect such a good stoppage? Or because obviously it was such a big step up for him that a lot of people thought maybe because he'd knocked out the guy before as well. So everyone was sitting on the fence on, is it a big step up? Is he going to go the distance? Or
I've got 100% confidence in Ryan, no matter who he fights. You know, even when, let's go back to like training, he admit, for sparring. Obviously, he had some good rounds with Dennis McCann before that. Dennis McCann come down to our gym. You know, Dennis McCann is a great fighter. He had some good rounds with him. Wherever I've took Ryan sparring, or wherever we've been called for sparring, you know, and I could give you a list of world champions.
Can you give me a few?
Yeah, Cole Frampton, I won. Mick Conlon. Josh Warrington, Ryan Walsh, Liam Walsh. Yeah, I think there's a few there, enough for you. Yeah, there might be some more. Ryan might be able to tell you that, but but like, you know, but I've always, you know, I'll give you a little story here. Obviously, I remember Barry McGuigan phoning me up on a Sunday night, asking. He goes, "You got a kid called Ryan Garner?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "He's a good kid, isn't he?" I said, "Yeah, he's good, yeah." He said, "Would he be available tomorrow morning for sparring?" So we actually went on I think it was on the Wednesday in the end. Spoke to a couple of people in boxing, said that Ryan's going to be sparring Cole Frampton. What are you doing that for? You know, Cole Frampton's a killer, he's this, he's that, he's that. But I said to Ryan, you know, we go. If it's too much for you, obviously I'm not stupid, you know what I mean? I'm there to look after you. You know, we won't go back or I'll cut the round short or whatever. And then we went, obviously, that's when obviously Carl was with Shane. And Ryan sparred, and it was a great spar. And, you know, I'm not going to say no more than that, but... You know, Cole always called us back for sparring. You know, was a great champion, very smart man in boxing. and he always called us back for sparring. He said he needs Ryan to prepare him. So you know that says it all.
Must be
for
such a
me.
confidence
Yeah.
booster. When was that roughly in Ryan's career as well?
I think Ryan was. I think he was about 5-0 at the time. So it was 5-0, 6-0. So it was early on in his career as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last time we sparred him was when obviously Cole went with Jamie Moore, and he called us, and we went up to obviously Manchester, and he sparred him obviously towards like the end of his career as well, Cole's career. You know, and Cole's obviously a great pundit now on the TV. He always speaks highly of Ryan. So from that to come from like someone like Cole Frampton, you know, that says enough for me really. But like I say, going back to what we first were saying, you know, I'd like to get Ryan over to America and test himself with, like, you know, some of the fighters over there.
Did you maybe want to take him just for a full camp or something before?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, definitely at the right time. Yeah, I'd like to do something like that. Obviously, we've been over to Tenerife, go over there quite a lot, and you know, spend some time over there training. But like I say, going back to what we were talking about, if I got a call from Javante Davis saying we've got Ryan Gar, yeah, he's very similar to Ryan, I'd feel confident to take Ryan over there and make a good account of himself sparring.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the confidence I got in him, and the belief I got in him.
Amazing. And how do you find as a coach? There's so many different people that work with professional fighters. Nutritionists coming on board now. They've probably got physios. They might have S&C coaches separate. How do you find sort of the relationship of every fighter and having that balance so they make sure they get all their boxing training in? And you do see it quite a lot that some fighters end up boxing less when obviously if you're training for a fight, if you're not boxing, then what's the point? You might as well become a runner if you're just going to run half the time. But how do you find as a coach to balance all of those things and to maybe make sure they get the best of those outlets, but obviously not neglecting the sport?
It's difficult to manage, but if you get it right, I think it is I think obviously with the way times have moved on, like say with boxing now, you know, I know I keep reverting back to him, but obviously Ronnie Davis was old school.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chris Eubank Sr. never done no weights or nothing like that. It was just like heavy bag work and runs. So, but times do move on. So at the moment, yeah, we have got a running coach in place. We've got an S&C coach in place. We've got a nutritionist in place. And obviously there's me in my role. So it is hard to like get it right and balance it out. But I think if you do get it right, I think it is a positive.
Mm-hmm.
But I do hear stories like, you know, you get S&C coaches who come in and then they want the fighter these days and that days, and, you know, they're whispering in their ear saying they should be doing this and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can lose control of it, definitely. But I think if you get it right, I think it is a positive now with, like you say, with sports science. So like, you know, we know the sport's governed by making weight in it. So nutritionists now, I do think, play a big part to get that right. And then obviously, you know, we have got a good running coach who's on board, but he's been working with us now for a long time, from like the amateur days, so he understands it. But if you get the wrong person who get involved and they think the S&C becomes more important than the boxing, and so on like that, then I think you've got problems. But
definitely. I think, again, it comes back to the relationship, right? Obviously, like you said, you're stable. You've been with these guys for a good amount of time that I'm guessing every single camp, you know what to add and you know where to keep improving. It is fairly linear, I'm sure, as they go through the ranks.
yeah, because like you say, like numbers now, and like say fighters like to they like to see the numbers becoming better, don't they? And then maybe that goes back to like the mental side of it. Like, I think I'm right, but you know, maybe ask him in a minute. But I think like Ryan's an unbelievable runner. Do you know what I mean? Our running coach was ex-GB runner, and he's like, you know, Ryan's times of running are phenomenal. You wouldn't think so for the shape of his body. Do you know what I mean? Like the way he is, he's not like tall, lean, and long legs. He's, you know, he do 5K, and I think it was like 16:41
Wow,
or 3 or something like that.
that's incredible.
Yeah, and like people say, how can he run like he ain't even got proper running trainers? But so I don't know if he's just naturally like you say. But then on the flip side, like you're saying, he's not a runner, he's a fighter. So yeah, you have to be careful, but also like I say, I just think that if Ryan improves on his times, or fighters improve on their weight that they're lifting, I think it makes them mentally feel prepared and better.
Definitely. And how did you find back when you were coaching amateurs and when you started with the professional game, how did you find the transition? Obviously, you would have been fairly clued up as a boxing fan and being in the amateurs, but was it a big difference when you started to actually have fighters in and you started seeing the pro game of what it is? Was it a big change in how you coached?
Yeah, I think it is. I think one of the first things I noticed that some of these the amateur fighters, I think the difference is that when they turn over, they're fighting tough men. They're fighting tough men, and the journeymen who start fighting out at the beginning of their career, these are tough men, experienced men as well, who have had a lot of fights, and they do know how to win if they need to. But obviously, their job is to just obviously survive and get through and get to the next payday. And it's like, I just think so. But I think that's the big difference that I found, and they most probably found, that these are strong, tough men, durable, and yeah.
And how about, obviously, when they go from an elite amateur in really competitive, fast sprint 3 rounds to all of a sudden a lot more relaxed, a lot more sitting on your punches, as you say, everything. How do you find that transition in terms of them even mentally understanding that this is what you do now? Don't forget everything, but sort of forget how you were boxing as an amateur.
Yeah, like I always believe that, like, I don't like to change anyone too much. Obviously, if they've been successful as an amateur and they've had a certain style, then just make small adjustments to it, add little things, but don't change it. So, but like you say, they're going from 3 rounds, obviously, to starting off their career 4 rounders, 6 rounders, 8 rounders, 10 rounders, obviously 12 rounders. But I look at the bigger picture. So I like to try and build them, like start building early for the longer duration of, obviously, then like the 10 and 12 rounders. So by the time they come to that stage, then they sort of like already know how to prepare themselves and deal with that. But like you say, it is. I do say to them, they got a little bit more time than they think. Sometimes, like you say, the amateurs 3 rounds was a bit of a sprint. You couldn't afford to drop a round. Don't get me wrong, in a 4-rounder, I've had fighters who've had their pro career. They can't really afford to, drop a round or 2, because otherwise next thing do you know what I mean? They're fighting for the draw or they're playing catch up. But so you've got to be careful at the 4-round stage. But obviously 6 rounds, 8 rounds and onwards, then they've got more time to sort of like find their way into the fight, but keep their natural style. They are what they are.
Yeah, and how important do you find trying to find the right sparring partners, and what do you think is the importance of sparring in terms of, should they be having hard wars every week leading up to a fight? Should they maybe doing more tech sparring and closed off things until like a few weeks out? How do you usually see it?
Obviously, there's a lot of coaches out there that do it differently, and that's what I've picked up over the years. Even when they stop sparring, obviously, before a fight. And I think it's down to the individual a little bit. And this is what I say, I think some people, or some coaches, do it in set ways where they finish on a certain day, they do certain rounds every week, the same with every fighter. But you asking me that question, I feel like it's down to the individual again. I've had some fighters that like to spar all the time, and some fighters that don't really like sparring. So I just think for me, it's just like working with the individual again. And seeing some improvement in sparring from the start of camp to the difference obviously towards the end of the camp. And then cutting it off whenever you feel is right, or cutting the rounds down whenever you feel right. But obviously the most important thing, is the closest you're going to get to competition, and it's sparring.
Yeah.
So for me, it's, for them to get their timing and distancing and so on. Obviously, I'll go back to Ryan again, because that's the last fight was fresh in my mind. We finished with a 10-round spar on the last one, and I know mentally, that made Ryan feel in a good place. But with someone else, I might have just finished off on a 6, or it's just down to the individual. Going back to what Emmanuel Short said, knowing your fighter, knowing how makes them tick, and knowing how to peak them.
Nice. So finishing up, I just want to ask really about your stable. So you got quite a few fighters. I don't think we've even mentioned Josh Frankham yet. I'm not sure, but could you just say a few words about each of your fighters, and just maybe what they've got coming up, what you've got coming up as a team?
Obviously, I think Josh Frankham will be the next one out. But Josh Frankham is obviously trying out another trainer at the minute. Obviously, I manage Josh. Just having a little change. But he's out on... he's got George Davey in his next fight, which should be a good test for him. I'm sure Josh will come through it. I believe in Josh. Great work ethic, good lad. But also feel he needs to move on to the next level now. He's had his learning fights, and I think that'll bring out the best in Josh.
Brilliant. And who else have you got in your stable right now?
Obviously Mark's there, but obviously, just Mark's trying out a few new things as well at the minute.
Do you train Mark's brother too?
Yeah, Jamie's there, but obviously Jamie ain't fought for a long time. He's obviously he got married recently, and
congratulations.
Yeah, he's busy with work, and not sure what he's going to do with his career, whether he's going to carry on fighting, or whether he's going to give it another go.
I think you just saying that there will probably sum it up. If you're not sure and you've got other things going on, then maybe, I don't know, from my view, you've got to be all in. If you're going to be a professional fighter, even at any level, you need to be all in. So yeah. I hope maybe if the circumstances change, you might be ready to go all in. Or
yeah, you're definitely right there. Like I say, going back to what we said earlier, you for me as a coach, you got to want it. You got to want it bad. You got to want to do it. There's no point doing it half-heartedly. Otherwise, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. So, and then obviously got Alex Dilmagani in the gym at the moment. Obviously, Alex started me at the beginning of his career, then went off to Mexico to work with Nacho Barastine, and was Marquez, his main sparring partner. When he fought Manny Pacquiao, and he went off to Canada, then went to London. He's done a few trainers, Alex has. Went up to Manchester and worked with Anthony Crolla, Joe Gallagher for a little bit, I think, and then now he's back with me and said obviously he wants to finish his career with me.
Amazing. So he's had all those experiences now as well to come back.
Yeah. And he was supposed to be out today actually in Dublin on a Conlon show, promotion, but it got cancelled. So
the whole show was cancelled.
Yeah,
right?
The whole show was cancelled. Yeah. So he's got a date pending very soon anyway. But work ethic is, unbelievable from Alex. He's just he's got a great work ethic. So we'll have a couple of foreign fighters. Just trying to skip through them quick here now, Ash.
Yeah,
but,
go for it.
Got a couple of foreign fighters. Got Damien, a Polish fighter, just fought Antti Kakachi for the IBO World title. Yeah, he could come up a little bit short, but he's a good lad. I got Alex Moya in Spain, Spanish champion. But obviously these guys, they come over for camp, and they got other managers at the moment looking after them. I don't know if I've missed anyone out. Obviously got some good amateurs coming through, and some amateurs that want me to who want to sign with Frank Warren.
Is there anyone about to turn over? Any amateurs that you've got?
There's a couple at the minute right in the pipeline. just looking to turn over, but just having like a bit of a trial in the gym at the minute to see whether we can work together as in such, or see whether I can get that connection, and then if we can, then hopefully, Jack McLaughlin was another one who signed with Frank Warren, but he ain't had his pro debut yet. He's had a few little like injuries and holidays and so on, so hopefully might get him out before the end of the year. But he's got a contract there with Queensbury, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you coming down, and I'll chat with you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.